Welcome into Surviving Paradise, the podcast that takes a sometimes serious, oftentimes humorous look at the claim by Jehovah's Witness leaders that they're living in a modern day spiritual paradise. I'm your host here, Stacy Bauman, former elder, ministerial servant, and a kid raised as a witness throughout the 70s and 80s. As I do, boy, there's a lot to be triggered at lately. There's something really bad coming. We'll get into that. But we try to have fun here. We try to heal. Each episode features sarcasm, humor, my own observations. Please note, nothing here is ever meant to offend anyone. It's simply my take on the entire situation. Welcome in. So how has everyone been the past couple of weeks? How have you been? I hear there's been some big news out of heaven from Jesus Christ through Jehovah's Witnesses. I can't even begin to imagine what Jehovah's Witnesses are going through right now. Last Sunday, you may have invited your Bible student to the meeting where the public speaker highlighted the evils of going to college. That Bible student may have enjoyed the meeting, so they agreed to return the very next Sunday, just 7 days later, where all the talk in the Kingdom Hall is how acceptable it is to go to college now, just within days. Imagine the questions Jehovah's Witnesses may have faced from Bible studies or Bible students. Hey, what's changed in 7 days with college? What day this past week did Jesus make the change? Was it hump day on Wednesday? Was it just in time for students to report to their dorm rooms next week? Did he kick Satan off campus finally? Kind of like he did in heaven back there in 1914. I mean, imagine having to answer the questions from thinking people, Bible studies or Bible students, of which there are very few. We all know that. But imagine a week later, suddenly college is okay. But more than anything, I find myself wondering if Jehovah's Witnesses are currently trying to locate the one thing they all surrender when they get baptized. It's called common sense. And look, before you think I'm being insulting, we all did it, this guy included, and I hope they're scrambling to find what they voluntarily handed over to 11 men most of them don't know in New York. Ah, yes, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. They've been making headlines lately, haven't they? Wouldn't you agree? I'm here to say that they have set us all up. Yeah, I believe we're being set up. In what is possibly the most overlooked moment of the past few years in paradise, the 2023 annual meeting that most Jehovah's Witnesses didn't watch or know anything about featured a disclaimer that makes every lie, every change, every note of new light, every ounce of lost potential and life, well, it makes it all a moot point. Whether they've chosen the path of ignorance or have extenuating circumstances such as aging parents they don't want to be shunned by or no desire to even lose their family and friends, Jehovah's Witnesses continue to buy into a massive con job, with the men at the top of their organization serving them up disclaimer after disclaimer and calling it new light or new understanding or a clarification, or as King David said, and when I say King David, I mean King David Splain said, when they reversed their entire take on higher education a few weeks ago, we want to clarify. Yeah, I'll bet you do. Odd that Jesus has to clarify anything. You see, you don't need to give anything at all, any additional thought. Every round of new light from the same guy that resurrected dead kids, but only then showed up back here invisibly in 1914 with a completely redone personality of his own. Well, it's all an afterthought now. It's clear they truly believe that the vast majority of Jehovah's Witnesses will swallow and obey anything that they tell them, and they're willing to deal with the attrition. And they did it with the only disclaimer they ever needed. Again, as I do off the rails, going back to that 2023 annual meeting that they shared with the universe and hosted by future King Priest Jeffrey Winder. We talk about it a lot when he said, quote, "Well, knowing this, we are not embarrassed by adjustments that are made, nor is an apology needed for not getting it exactly right previously. We understand this is how Jehovah operates. He reveals matters gradually when it is needed." End quote. I never tire of that. There it is. For a thinking person, they may immediately wonder why wrong information is shared with people, information that means life or death, and we're told that's how Jehovah operates. But then we're also told Jehovah gradually, he fixes it down the line. He gives us the right information. In the meantime, we're being misled. And they're not embarrassed, and they don't need to apologize for this. To give you an idea of how serious this might be, particularly for a Jehovah's Witness that is here, imagine your surgeon who's about to operate on you and save your life says, I don't feel embarrassed, and I certainly don't need to apologize when I give you wrong information before I open you up. I mean, let's face it, folks. He could give a preview, a snippet, a teaser. But since when did Jehovah and Jesus bless sharing wrong information for decades? And as you'll soon see, for centuries, impacting the lives of millions of people in multiple generations. They're up in heaven looking on, pointing down, they got it all wrong, but let's just let it lie. Let's watch and see what happens before we fix it. Look, if the Almighty wants to tease upcoming changes with accurate teachings as he led us along the path to the ultimate doctrinal truths, who are we to argue, right? But Jehovah's Witnesses believe it's just how New Light works. The Almighty and his son Jesus actually blessed teaching mankind the wrong thing for decades as they watch on. Sometimes they even go back and forth, changing things and then rechanging, going back to what they originally said, then changing that, then going back to it again. And by the way, if you dismiss this whole New Light concept as explained by the governing body, did we mention that people have died because of this? It's also confusing when you consider that Jesus, on his first visit here to earth, said stuff like this. From John 14:6 of the New World Translation, we are told, quote, Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life, end quote. This same Jesus that leads Jehovah's Witnesses also showed us how important it was to be accurate in all things and to be truthful in all things when, during one of his last prayers on that visit to earth, he said to his Father, Jehovah, at John 17:17 of the New World Translation, quote, sanctify them by means of the truth. Your word is truth, end quote. As near as I can tell from his book, his letter to mankind, he wanted us to know he always spoke the truth. He was always clear. He was always accurate. He even asked his Father in prayer, very intimate, very important, that the rest of us be just like him, sanctified in telling the truth in all things. If you're wondering, what does sanctify mean? Allow me. It means to, quote, consecrate, render holy, set apart something for a sacred or holy purpose, purify, or free something from sin, or to make something morally right and respected, end quote. If you're now contemplating how to define truth, as outlined in what Jesus said, well, the Oxford Dictionary says, quote, the quality or state of being true, end quote. At the risk of derailing this conversation on a tangent of things they said that were not true going back 2 centuries, please catch other episodes. I'll try to stay on track here. But I think you know where this is going. You simply can't be teaching people erroneous things that are not true for decades as Jehovah and Jesus watch on. After all, we're told it comes from them, and expect us to understand when it changes. So Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus Christ and his Father, the very embodiment of truth, has watched the governing body teach the wrong thing over and over and over and over and over and over again throughout 3 centuries. But take heart, the governing body isn't embarrassed. And I want you to stop holding your breath, waiting for an apology. The governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses has created a reference point for everything and anything that comes next. In layman's terms, they're getting out front of the questions regarding teaching non-truths, inaccurate, erroneous information that got people killed for decades. And Jehovah's Witnesses are sitting in kingdom halls or going to conventions or watching broadcasts, and they're just swallowing it. It's coming in very overt ways, and it's coming in subtle ways. Both ways. In your face and just off to the side where you may not notice it. It's subliminal. Overtly, we march out a future king priest on camera to let you grow hair on your body, clink glasses, and now even go to college. In subtle ways, and one of my all-time favorites, they slip this stuff into a publication, and most likely over the years into a Watchtower study paragraph. And I'm here to tell you folks, they've done it yet again. It seems it 'tis the season for them. All Band-Aids are being ripped off now. All reset buttons are being pushed. And I'm here to tell you, I can't wait for the 2025 annual meeting. When you've wasted lives, or in other cases, made life so much more difficult than it ever needed to be, nothing says we are the faithful and discreet slave like admitting you've investing in a day. You've been investing in a day. You've been pushing a day. You've been promoting a day. You've been talking about a day. You've been asking for obedience about this day, and then learning that it will likely never come in the lifetime of those that have obeyed you. And so here it is. In the November 2025 Watchtower Study Edition, paragraph 7, please go look it up. The governing body, who at this point have mastered the art of gaslighting and manipulation, do what they do best. See if you can catch it if you're not yet familiar with this. Paragraph 7 of the November 2025 Watchtower says this, quote, "Perhaps you are saddened by the possibility that the end of this system will not come in your lifetime. If you feel that way, what can help? Try to remember that Jehovah is patiently waiting to bring an end to this wicked world. But his patience is not without purpose. His patience is allowing millions of people the time and the opportunity to come to know him and serve him. So when you feel discouraged, try to think about how many people will benefit from Jehovah's patience before the end comes. Might some of them be members of your family? End quote. Oh my. If you sneezed, coughed, or dozed off as the brother on stage reads this paragraph in coming weeks, or you looked at your Instagram, or you may have just missed what is said there on the stage when they conduct this Watchtower study, they snuck in a paragraph that will be studied in the deep winter, the first of this year, when many people are on vacation and not at the Kingdom Hall, a paragraph that subtly admits that Armageddon may not be coming in any of our lifetime. What just happened? Wait a minute. What? Armageddon, the day that everyone from the time they're born into this religion grow up believing in, grow up making every decision on, I may not even see it? You've been telling me something different for a long time. There's not a mention of overlapping generations or Daniel's vision of a statue with a rock hitting its feet. No discussion of 607 BCE. No mention of dragons chasing a woman and her baby, or harlots riding beasts, or the United Nations, or even the last days. Oh, I'm going to get to that. The leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses has just looked us all in the eye, and they've done it again. A small, seemingly throwaway paragraph that admits to anyone present in 2025 that, well, hey folks, Armageddon may not come in your lifetime. At which point you might say, really? You don't say. I've been waiting a while. I want to remind everyone that these are the same guys who have built their entire religion, the entire thing, the foundation, on what they called a fact that Armageddon was coming any second now. And according to King Stephen Lett, and I quote, the events unfolding around us are making it clearer than ever that we're living in the final part of the last days. Undoubtedly, the final part of the final part of the last days. Shortly before the last day of the last days. End quote. Wow. This Armageddon thing sounds imminent. That matches every publication and every talk I've heard since the very beginning of my time with Jehovah's Witnesses. I've been living in an underground bunker with a life vest on for years now, thinking Armageddon is going to hit any second. So, folks, we officially have a problem. According to the November 2025 Watchtower, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses is preparing people to live out their lives in this wicked system that Satan runs, including on following advice on how to deal with emotions, should I say disappointment, that they're giving us because Armageddon's not coming. You truly have to believe they think Jehovah's Witnesses are asleep now. Or, by the way, you can see this for yourself on video on TikTok. I'm not a big fan of social media, but you can go there for those that have it, and you can see Jehovah's Witnesses on TikTok dancing around at conventions in pants, in beards. They're even toasting and laughing about it. They're talking about college now. It's all on TikTok. By the way, how do I know this? I started a TikTok for this show. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Surviving Paradise on TikTok. Don't worry. I'm not wearing any short shorts and dancing. You're not going to see me doing any dances on TikTok. I have no clue what I'm going to do with the damn thing. But in so doing, Wow, was I exposed to a new world. It opened up the twilight zone of Jehovah's Witness profiles I never could have imagined. I found myself slipping right into the algorithm, no doubt with help from the angels. I'm sure they directed me there. And the stuff I see posted, my God. These younger generations of Jehovah's Witnesses will never understand how shocking all of this is to watch for those of us that grew up in the past 40, 50 years. But I can hear the Jehovah's Witness apologists now. Well, maybe this article in the November 2025 Watchtower paragraph 7 was just directed at elderly ones, because that is where the article is. I got news for you folks, and it pains me to say it. Smay it? Dismay, yeah. It pains me to tell you that they're smarter than that. This is calculated. It's every bit as calculated as future King Priest Jeffrey Jackson on the stand at the Australian Royal Commission so many years ago now. It's as calculated as loosening up greetings to disfellowshipped people, so they can now show governments that disfellowshipping and shunning isn't all that bad. We don't tell you you have to shun your kids. Please, by the way, keep those government checks coming. Have we fixed it now? We need the cash. In reality, the governing body continues to eviscerate this religion. Not for future generations that now will apparently be here a while, but for those that have stayed loyal through the insanity of the past 60 years, because before that, most people are gone. So for those apologists and younger people, younger Jehovah's Witnesses, Pimi, Pomos, Pomeranians, whatever it is, that think I'm reading too much into this paragraph from the November 2025 Watchtower, allow me to share with you what they've been saying about the timing of Armageddon in your own Watchtower library. I'll start with a favorite from way back in just 2015. From the Watchtower of August 15th, 2015, the article is Keep in Expectation. It was filled with gems like this. From paragraph 15, quote, we can expect that Jehovah's organization will continue to remind us that we should serve God with a sense of urgency. Such reminders are provided not merely to keep us busy in God's service, but to help us remain aware that the sign of Christ's presence is now undergoing fulfillment. End quote. Sounds immediate, does it not, in 2015? Paragraph 17, same article, quote, events on the world scene clearly indicate that Bible prophecy is now being fulfilled and that the end of this wicked system of things is imminent. Therefore, we should not assume that much time is needed for the state of this world to develop to the point where the 10 horns and the wild beasts of Revelation 17:16 turn on Babylon the Great. End quote. It's imminent. It's now. Paragraph 4, quote, the Bible leaves no doubt about what our attitude should be toward the impending destruction of this system of things. Jesus told his followers to keep on the watch and to keep awake. That in itself is a good reason to remain in expectation. Jesus told us to do so. In this regard, Jehovah's organization has set an example. Its publications have consistently exhorted us to await and keep close in mind the presence of the day of Jehovah, and to fix our hope on God's promised new world. End quote. Oh yeah, they sure have set the example. Jehovah's organization has had us all on the edge of our seats since early in the 19th century. They have set an outstanding example of scaring the living shit out of people for decades and decades. So no lie was told when they said they had pumped out publications, the word was consistently, telling us the world was ending any second now, and we had got to be ready for it. But now they're sliding it into a Watchtower paragraph that Armageddon likely will not come in our lifetime. You can't even begin to make this up. You just can't. It's truly staggering. An organization who has built their entire empire on very multiple creative doomsday prophecies and had their people living in fear for multiple generations now. But those same guys are now suggesting in November 2025 Watchtower that Armageddon, may not come anytime soon, folks. Tough break, huh? I have to say this out loud several times to even believe it's real. I didn't think I could be shocked anymore. And gee, I wonder why this paragraph in the November 25 Watchtower was written at all. Why was this even written? Who proofread this? Why would the people who realize that Armageddon's not coming in their lifetime be disappointed? I mean, why? Why would they be fearful as they now contemplate their own mortality after a lifetime of believing death would never happen to them? I'm going to say happen to us. I was one of them. I don't know. How about we let the governing body answer those questions for themselves? Why are we all worked up when we see this paragraph? I'm going to ask you to bear with me for a few moments as I reel off just a tiny sampling, a few references that need to be heard by Jehovah's Witnesses as well as all of us that left. From Survival into a New Earth from 1984, pages 184 and 185, the governing body on all things Armageddon said this, quote, "The countdown has proceeded for some 6 millenniums now, nears its 0 hour. So close is it that people who were alive in 1914 and who are now well along in years," did I mention this book is from 1984? Back to the quote, "will not all pass off the scene before the thrilling events marking the vindication of Jehovah's sovereignty come to pass." The early members of this group are now in their 60s or 70s or older. Jehovah did not allow the ingathering of this group to begin too soon. The great crowd, including many of the earliest members thereof, will survive into the new earth. End quote. 1984 book, Survival into a New Earth. It's not like it's the first time they were saying stuff like this. From the Watchtower of November 1st, 1952, page 658, they're in the 50s saying, quote, "Many other developments we have seen since 1914. The generation experiencing the beginning of these things will survive to see their end at Armageddon." End quote. Sound like a guarantee to you? Am I misreading this? Or how about this one? And it's one of my absolute favorites from the October 1st, 1978 Watchtower, page 31, quote, "Thus, when it comes to the application in our time, the generation logically would not apply to babies born during World War I. It applies to Christ's followers and others who were able to observe that war and the other things that have occurred in fulfillment of Jesus' composite sign. Jesus did not encourage his followers to try to calculate the exact length of this generation." End quote. Well, wait a minute, are you sure? Jesus didn't expect men here on earth to try to calculate the length of a generation? Is there time to pull this off the Watchtower library? I mean, we all remember King David's plane and his fancy generations chart that he was very proud to show us and explain to us in 2015 in a JW broadcast that year, in a talk ironically called, quote, "Close to the End of This System of Things," end quote. Yeah, that's right. The Watchtower of 78 said, Jesus, come on now. Jesus didn't expect us to calculate the exact lengths of generations. You don't say. Unless your name is David Splain, who is seen on video calculating the length of a generation. Who am I to question this, right? But note that even in 2015, Jehovah's Witnesses were living in fear. They were on the edge of their seats because, as you can see, Armageddon was expected any second now in their lifetime. Anyone who associates with Jehovah's Witnesses has lived their entire lives with a heightened level of urgency. Many have given up careers. They've given up marriage. They've given up having children. They've sold their homes and everything else. And because these men in control of this organization have spent time, lots of time, 3 times a week or more, not including conventions, service meetings, and all the other stuff, at least 3 times a week for a time period, pounding into our heads, and I do mean pounding, that Armageddon is coming in our lifetime. Not even a JW apologist or someone absolutely taken by their spell at the time of this podcast can deny that the entire message of Jehovah's Witnesses is that Armageddon was coming in our lifetime. From the October 2019 Watchtower Study Edition, we get, quote, "Were you born after the year 1914? If so, you have lived your entire life during the last days of the present system of things. As worshipers of Jehovah, we are convinced that we are living during the final part of the days." End quote. 2019 October Watchtower. And to that I say, well, apparently they're no longer convinced that we're living in the final part of the last days, huh? Not according to the November 2025 paragraph 7 Watchtower. What are Jehovah's Witnesses doing at this point? I'm not asking for a friend. I'm asking for me. Are the beards, are the pants, are the toasting, are those neckties you gave away to Goodwill, or going to college, or not having to fill out field service slips enough to get you personally to ignore that they now teach that you can become a Jehovah's Witness in the last seconds of the Great Tribulation when all you have is visible, concrete proof that Jehovah's Witnesses are the only religion standing, or that what follows, that thing called Armageddon, has become now a faraway event, not subject to a timeline anymore since, generations now overlap, or that it likely will not come in your lifetime. I think I can confidently ask at this point, or at least share that I am asking for a friend, or I'm asking for 2 friends, or I'm asking for millions of people. The governing body now has an article in a November Watchtower in 2025 written for the sole purpose of gaslighting, comforting people that now know they will die before Armageddon ever shows up. All of their sacrifices they've made to arrive in 2025, only to be told, It's not coming in your lifetime after all. But who cares, right? Who cares? Imagine being a woman who gave up motherhood to hand out their publications, assured that she would never die, but would be ushered into a paradise. Sorry, that woman. Sorry you're now in your 60s. Bummer. But stuff happens. Jehovah changes his mind. He let us teach you lies for decades. And, but look, sister, we're not embarrassed. And we certainly don't need to apologize to you for telling you that Armageddon would be here before you would die. We don't have to apologize for that. But alas, take heart, folks. I'm here to offer a small nugget of comfort, and I couldn't make it up if I tried. You see, if you're now depressed, if you're scared, if you're angry because Armageddon may be a while, well, please know you, my friend, are in the best of company. Good company. Yep, that's right. I never want to steal the governing body's thunder, but they want you to know, they want me to know, all of us, that we are, would you look at that? We are all just like, there he is, Noah. From the 1978 Watchtower, August 1st, page 22. They tell us this, quote, "We can be greatly encouraged in our course of self-sacrifice when we examine Bible history and see how other ordinary people successfully pursued such a course and the blessings they received for doing so. For example, Jehovah asked Noah to sacrifice things so that he could do a work that the world of his day considered foolish. He was instructed to make a huge vessel, an ark, yet there never had been any pouring rains or floods. Wait a minute. Furthermore, Noah was not a shipbuilder, and he had family responsibilities as well. Building such a huge ark would require Noah to take time from things that he may have preferred to do. Indeed, had he put that same time and energy into increasing his material wealth, he no doubt could have been more comfortable. 2, he had to sacrifice some of his reputation with neighbors, since his work on the ark opened him up to ridicule. Did he get discouraged or quit because that work took many years while he awaited the end of that system? On the contrary, Noah patiently continued his course of self-sacrifice. This included his being a preacher of righteousness. End quote. Even our present day attitudes, well, even that leads back to my guy Noah. It always does. He's a big shot. Never mind that we are told he made personal sacrifices only to watch everybody drown. He offered up some of the animals he saved and put on the ark. He then burned them as burnt offerings, got hammered drunk, dropped his pants, and cursed his son for catching him in the nude. He, my friend, was just like you, giving up everything as the governing body led you on the path to the November 2025 Watchtower, paragraph 7, where they now want to admit that Armageddon isn't coming. You're going to die after all. And wow, isn't it nice that they can help us with the pain of that? The pain they caused? Yes, I'm desperately resisting the urge to talk about their comments that there had never been any rain and floods. It was tough. Or what Noah gave up, including 500 years of bedding Mrs. Noah, but I'm going to stop there. I will say this. How fascinating that they continue to compare us to people of the Bible, characters that quite candidly most of us know never existed. But it doesn't matter. Have you ever thought about this? Even as they try to apply and comfort us with people from the past, I guess they forget to realize that those people didn't have an organization they were reporting to, that they were required to obey, or who lied to their face that they would never die. I don't think Noah ever heard from Jehovah, "You're never going to die." Jehovah was an interesting God. He was interesting. You remember, Moses did something pretty similar. He dedicated his whole life, made tons of sacrifices, blah, blah, blah. And then seconds before winning the prize, Jehovah took him up to the top of a mountain and said, "See, that's what you've been working for. But tough break, buddy. I'm about to kill you. You don't get the prize." I don't think Noah was ever promised that he would live forever in a paradise earth and that he would never taste death. Did I miss a verse in the Bible? But nonetheless, the governing body wants us to look at these types of things for comfort now that they're admitting that Armageddon ain't coming, folks. It ain't coming. Not in your lifetime. So how would you deal with such emotions? These men are now unabashedly gaslighting and misleading millions of people, and they've been doing it for better parts of 3 centuries. And now, in the past few years, I'd say beginning, I don't know, roughly in 2012, I'll just put 2012 as a point, with the announcement that the governing body alone, a body that didn't even exist prior to 1971, has always been the faithful and discreet slave. And this group of men continue to hit the reset button on everything. They're doing it right under our noses. God, I can't wait for the annual meeting. I'm guessing maybe birthdays. I don't know. But they're hitting the reset button. They're ripping off the Band-Aid, hoping those hurt by all of their lies will just kind of forget about it, but most assuredly, and make no mistake of this, recognizing the people they've lied to for decade after decade that have wasted their lives obeying them, those same people, well, they're not going to have to worry about them for long because they're going to die. Yeah. They're going to die. And with them, so will their voices and their questions about being misled by this organization. You may be thinking this apostate podcast host has really lost it. He's a wicked man. Okay. The governing body isn't resetting the religion. Where is this guy getting this? By the way, I'm basing this off my new introduction, I should say, to TikTok, where I'm seeing these Jehovah's Witnesses. Wow, folks. I mean, it's really tough to watch and listen to how, I don't even want to say anything mean, how just uneducated they are. But you might be thinking, the governing body isn't resetting the religion. To which I would say, well, are you sure? Are you sure you want to say that? In the interest of time, let's review what I call the Great Reset, ripping off that Band-Aid. Let's look closer at the proverbial Band-Aid that these dishonest men have just torn off the lives of loyal Jehovah's Witnesses, and I'm only going to go back to the date I left, February of 2009. But the majority of the reset has happened in the past couple of years anyway. You could even confidently say the past few months. And that's just how Jesus rolls in heaven, right? Consider a few that came off the top of my head. Here's one that shocked me at the time. The Congregation Book Study, long a staple of this religion and designed to get us all through the Great Tribulation, it wasn't needed anymore. Gone. They abolished it. In 2012, the understanding of the faithful and discreet slave parable, of which they claim is a prophecy, went from all anointed people representing the composite slave to only the mostly white guys on the governing body. Gone was all the diversity in both color, walk of life, culture, and gender. that you would claim amongst the crowd of anointed Christians still alive here on earth. They were all gone, and along with it, any of the understanding that they communicated or were involved in feeding the rest of us. Jehovah's Witnesses would now be judged by mostly a small handful of white guys from the Western world. Wow, I wonder why Jesus waited till 2012 to share that with us. How about this? You can now join Jehovah's Witnesses in the closing seconds as the ark door is closing. There is no point to being a Jehovah's Witness today. There just isn't. There's no point. You can join in the closing seconds of the Great Tribulation. How about this? I'm not going to spend another second on the new light allowing me as a man to grow hair on certain parts of my body. Beards, long a controversy. There's stuff like women that can now wear pants. Men no longer need to wear suits or neckties. You can now toast glasses anytime you want. And would you look at this one? This is big. You can now, out of nowhere, at certain occasions, greet disfellowshipped people. Even shake their hand or give them a hug as seen in the Watchtower photographs. What? And this is something. Jesus no longer wants to keep his spreadsheet updated in heaven. So after the better part of a century of counting field service time, that doesn't matter anymore either. You just now check a box that you thought about talking to somebody one time. Imagine the amount of money they could have saved on printing all those kingdom ministries back in the day. How about in 2014? One of my favorite king priests, David Splain, got on stage and told Jehovah's Witnesses that they would no longer be teaching us types and antitypes. Imagine how many publications never needed to be printed at all in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Take the same subject of 1914, the last days in Armageddon, for example. None of it mattered. Ever thought about it? All those books, all those magazines, all those brochures, they were all wrong anyway. And they don't even need to teach us types and antitypes anymore. Since nowhere in the Bible does it say that there is a secondary antitypical fulfillment to Daniel's prophecy beyond his time, it becomes unnecessary to search for a numerical formula to calculate the 7 times as being a total of 2,520 years when they started or when they ended. None of it matters. But that didn't stop Jesus and his guys in New York from teaching us types and antitypes and antitypicals and modern day this and that, year after Sunday after Sunday. But it's gone now. And then recently, it's okay to go to college. Can you imagine this? It's okay to go to college. That's a you call. And then finally, my last one, Armageddon. It's not coming in your lifetime, folks. You may have overlooked when this organization said millions now living would never die. I mean, hard copy book, Watchtower articles, they even still talk about that book. You may have overlooked that, well, the title of the book alone is a lie. You gave them a pass on that one. Not sure why, but many did. But hold tight. They just did it again. They did it again. It worked the first time. It's going to work the second time too. And if you're looking for proof of what I'm saying, the Watchtower of 1997, January 1st, page 11, where we are told, quote, in the early 1920s, a featured public talk presented by Jehovah's Witnesses was entitled, Millions Now Living Will Never Die, end quote, for a moment. Do you think maybe they should just not be proud of this? Maybe they should stop mentioning this book? No, let's pop it into a 97 Watchtower. Back to the quote, pay close attention. This may have reflected over-optimism at the time. But today, that statement can be made with full confidence. End quote, Watchtower, January 1st, 1997. Wait a minute. Over optimism? Is that what we call lying now? But nothing says you're running a man-made cult like saying that and then doing it again in 1997. Yeah. Folks, come on now. That was just overly optimistic in 1925. So what was it saying no one alive in 1997 would die either? In fact, as the reference says, that statement can be made with full confidence. They did it again. Why? Because it works. It works. You have to wonder why millions of people, thousands at the time, didn't walk away when they got Judge Joe's books claiming no one would die. And then they're doing the same formula again as late as 1997. Oopsie. Until the November Watchtower 2025, paragraph 7. I'll say it again. They're hitting the ongoing reset button. They're reinventing the religion on timetables. It's strategic. They're using formulas that have always worked on human psychology and what people buy into. Aside from wondering what happened to Jesus when he became a Jehovah's Witness, because it's a valid question, you truly have to wonder how any of us or how any current Jehovah's Witnesses ever just ignore this stuff that's right there in their Watchtower library. But back to paragraph 7 in the November 2025 Watchtower. I want to take a minute to reread it slowly. Quote, perhaps you are saddened by the possibility that the end of this system will not come in your lifetime. If you feel that way, what can help? Try to remember that Jehovah is patiently waiting to bring an end to this wicked world. But his patience is not without purpose. His patience is allowing millions of people the time and the opportunity to come to know him and serve him. So when you feel discouraged, try to think about how many people will benefit from Jehovah's patience before the end comes. Might some of them be members of your own family? End quote. Even as they try to comfort the very people that will be distraught to learn they're going to die, that they've misled, and whose lives they've completely altered in a throwaway paragraph, they also expose how disgusting this entire teaching has always been. Really, take a deep breath with me. As a Jehovah's Witness, did you realize that by allowing this world to continue on, by not bringing Armageddon on this planet, but allowing it to go on and on and on, yes, he did allow millions more to come in contact with Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, Jehovah's patient, I guess. He allowed millions of people more to learn about Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm not going to go into the fact that some of the most populous countries still don't know him or are allowed to talk to him. But nonetheless, yeah, millions more got to know Jehovah's Witnesses in the governing body. But I want to leave you with some things to think about. By extension, in so doing, this also means he will then have to destroy additional millions of people at Armageddon who don't want to be Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah. They're born. With Armageddon nowhere in sight and them admitting it, this means he is continuing to let babies be born, all the while knowing that the vast majority will not choose to follow Stephen Lett or David Splain, but will reject this religion, and then Jehovah will then allow Stephen Lett and David Splain to kill those people at Armageddon. I mean, wow. This paragraph 7 sure had some special thought put into it, didn't it? But it's not new, it's just the same formula. With every 10 babies born today, how many of those 10 will become Jehovah's Witnesses? You know, because according to this paragraph, that's why Armageddon hasn't come yet, but will instead not become a witness and be destroyed. So, in other words, he allowed the governing body to mislead, coerce, and flat out lie to millions of people in favor of delaying Armageddon, even though he said it was coming for us. Oh, I'm just kidding. I changed my mind. In so doing, he was allowing more babies to be born and become Jehovah's Witnesses and preach to others about the same day Armageddon that's going to be here any second now in their lifetimes, so that they could then have babies that they would study with and get baptized to become Jehovah's Witnesses. And wait a minute. All of it without ever addressing that the millions that would be born and choose not to be a Jehovah's Witness, well, they would be doomed to destruction. They'd be bird food and Armageddon, and just adding to the death totals. From the Oxford Dictionary, the definition of a doomsday cult is this, quote, a religious movement whose members believe that an apocalyptic event will soon occur, end quote. Incidentally, these doomsday cults, I don't know if you've noticed this if you're a Jehovah's Witness, these doomsday cults have a 100% failure rate. It might be why you're actually listening to this podcast. From the book Doomsday Cult, A Study of Conversion, Proselytization, and Maintenance of Faith, we're told, quote, a psychological research study by Festinger, Reichen, and Schachter found that people turned to a cataclysmic worldview after they had repeatedly failed to find meaning in mainstream movements. Leon Festinger and his colleagues had observed members of the group for several months and recorded their conversations both prior to and after a failed prophecy from the charismatic leader. The group had organized around a belief system which foretold that a majority of the Western Hemisphere would be destroyed by a cataclysmic flood on December 21st, 1955. Their work was later published in the 1956 book, When Prophecy Fails, a social and psychological study of a modern group that predicted the destruction of the world. It continues, quote, social scientists have found that while some members will leave after the date for a doomsday prediction by the leader has passed uneventfully, others actually feel their belief and commitment to the group strengthened. Often when a group's doomsday prophecies or predictions fail to come true, the group leader will simply set a new date for impending doom, or predict a different type of catastrophe on a different date. Niederhofer and Kenner say, when you have gone far out on a limb, and so many people have followed you, and there is much sunk cost, as economists would say, it is difficult to admit you have been wrong, end quote. Does any of that sound familiar? I, for one, can think of an example. You don't need to admit you were wrong. You can put words into arguably or attribute them to the most famous character in history, from the most published book in history. You can then get creative and create things like overlapping generations. And then finally, let's be quick about this, you can hit the reset button on your entire belief system. Jehovah's Witnesses, Armageddon, followed by a paradise earth. They aren't coming. Those things aren't true. They're not even taught in the Bible. You were lied to. And I understand if this upsets you, it sure upset me at the time. If you want some comfort, though, that captures all of the sacrifices you've made to date, all of your heartbreak, all of the lost time and potential, well, there's some comfort for you, if you're a witness, in paragraph 7 of the 2025 November Watchtower. They like to let you down easy on something they've always been dishonest about. I used to hate it. I'm sure I'm not alone. When my mom would rip off a Band-Aid off a skinned knee or a scraped elbow, it just hurt. And I got to tell you, it only got worse as a grown man when I allowed for body hair to grow where it naturally does. And then you have to rip the Band-Aid off after something like a blood test. It hurts more than the needle going into your arm. All that hair. Ouch. Am I alone on that? Probably not. But that is exactly what the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses have been doing for the past few years, folks. That's what they're doing. If you prefer a different illustration, they're pushing the reset button on the entire religion and all their mistakes. Kind of like a video game. Push the reset button. For us older ones, and I'm sure this is going to be true of any and all generations that associate with this religion, we never would have seen this coming. Never would have guessed it. It's so staggering and shocking. And so I end with this. And it's a question for Jehovah's Witnesses that might be here bravely listening. I really do appreciate that. I know how uncomfortable and unsettling it can be to start looking because you know something's wrong. Thank you for being here. But for you Jehovah's Witnesses, what is it, peonies? They require you today to shun your own kids. They even require that you let your kids die if they need a blood transfusion. They've completely overhauled the doctrines you dedicated your life to in baptism. Things like never dying and when and how a person can be saved. So as a naturally curious person, I have a question for any and all Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's this. At this point, what won't you believe? I want to thank you for joining me this week, wherever you may be. Hey, folks, it looks like we're going to be here a while. So be well.